It's a little bit of a contemporary take on it because I'm using a wax resist instead of the like traditional way of carving and covering the whole thing in slip and then scratching it off. Which I can do that if time permits, but I was going to kind of focus on the more fine line kind of stuff. So I'll trim. I have one left to trim, so I'll trim it, and then we'll get started on the surface part. Cool. And I brought some other pieces in here. A lot of my work is most of my work is either fired in a gas kiln or it's been fired in a wood kiln. And so I had a really wonderful community in the hill country just outside of San Antonio where we fire about 4 times a year. So that's a little bit on pause at the moment, but I just brought a few samples of that work. It tends to end up a little bit different than the celadon and porcelain kind of stuff. So I tend to work in porcelain for the gas kiln, although not always. And then I tend to work with a darker stoneware body in the wood kiln. But again, not always. There's sort of whatever I ended up working with that day. Cool. That may be underway. It's a little soft. I shouldn't have spritzed it. But it'll work. It's kind of blocky off, huh? Just put it over here. I work standing up most of the time because I'm not that old. I'm only 36, but I got a bad model of the lower back. It's not great. So I find that standing, I'm able to, and I have a pad in my studio that I stand on, so I find that really helps me. I can work for a little bit longer than I can sitting down. I got into clay when I was about 15. Growing up at the beach, I was really more interested in going surfing than I was doing about anything else. I washed dishes in this Italian restaurant starting at 14 was my first job so that I could afford skateboard and surfboard stuff, right? So that's where kind of my priorities lie. And I had my freshman year of high school, I guess I didn't register for enough credits, right? And the counselor was like, you want a free period, you can't have that, like you gotta fill it with something. And so I was like, all right, well, what are my options? And there was this art class. And I was like, cool, that's last period, I can probably skip it. I'll go skip it, and it'll be great, cool. And I had this instructor, his name is Joseph Cunliffe, and he's still down in the Wilmington area, and completely changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, the other stuff was cool. The painting, the drawing, I liked all that, that was fine. But then the last month of the semester, we got to mess around with clay, and I was like, well, this is pretty cool. So I took clay classes the rest of high school, and Mr. Cunliffe was a really amazing teacher, and like more than anything, he got out of the way. And no, I don't mean that in like any negative way whatsoever, but he just like, he got out of the way. Like he saw that I was like curious about things and that I would tinker and like mess stuff up and like not succeed, but that I found a lot of joy in that, and so I keep fussing around with it until I thought I figured it out. And I think that was really impactful. So. I'm a little type A too about certain things, so there's certain parts of the making process that I'm really anal about, and then there's certain parts that I'm like, it's fine, it'll work out. But trimming is one of the things that I'm really anal about. I love it. It's my favorite part of the process. It forces me to use a different part of my brain space than the rest of the processes because it's subtractive. And so in a culture where we are always thinking about like what else, like more, like faster, better, like more, this is like what I'm trying to get rid of everything that doesn't need to be there. So it's about minimizing, right? It's about removing the excess. And I think there's a really cool, I like that metaphor in the part of trimming. And it's like super satisfying. And so the feet, I think, are really critical with us. Well, with anything. I mean, you should care. Like, if you're gonna make the thing, I think you should like care about all parts of it. But especially with a small, intimate object like the cup, I think feet really matter because it's gonna get dirty. It's gonna be in the sink, and somebody's gonna look at it, and they're gonna open up the dishwasher, and it's like there, and like, I don't know. I don't want somebody to be like, whoa, great cup, and then the next morning they open the dishwasher and they're like, whoa, that's a terrible foot, so I think a lot about that. Not that I function as the driving force, but I think a lot about user experience. And what I'm checking for is the depth, because I glaze the inside of the feet. So I want to make sure that that middle part, right, that I got my clearance enough. So when I throw this, I leave probably, I don't know what, 5/8 or something on the bottom, and then I just trim it away. That way I know I got enough. Easier to take it away than it is to add it back, I think. So I like that inside edge, so I use this little squared off trimming tool. I like to kind of make that a crisp edge, if I can. Because like, I guess in some ways, like I'm always thinking about the transition space being ambiguous, but then here it feels like it needs to be defined. Like, okay, the bottom's stopping, the foot's starting, kind of thing. I don't know, maybe it doesn't need to be that way, but that's how I've been doing it for a while. And then I bevel off the top. So I take off each side a little bit. Actually, I'm going to thin that down just a bit. I try to make the thickness of the foot, I think, needs to make sense for the rest of the piece, like the rim, like the height, the width. If you got like a really wide foot, then it's like the proportions there, I think, are off. So I try to, I don't have an equation or anything, it's just like, I just decide like, okay, I guess that's good. So then I bevel it a little bit and just get a really barely damp sponge, put a little bit of water on there, and then round that off just a bit. So now I've created something like a shape that hopefully once it gets through the firing process, it'll have a little bit of form to it. It's not just this like, you put it on a bandsaw and like, whoosh. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just that it doesn't fit the form, I don't think. So then, again, just a damp sponge, and I'll use this, like everybody's favorite rib ever, I would say, right? The small red rib. And I just compress that bottom and smooth it. So, and then I'll move to the outside. You don't usually need to trim much. I have like a circle trim, like trimming tool that I use for this, but I left it at home. So I'm using the big part of the egg, and it doesn't work as well, but it works well enough. Reserve judgment until you have all the facts. And then I just touch that rim up a little bit with a soft sponge. I also found recently came into a small stash of some like makeup sponges. Fantastic. way cheaper than the like bougie whatever. So as soon as this thing's done, I'm out of the bougie sponge game, and I'm like totally into the makeup sponge game.
How do you view the fact that you don't have a foot visually until you pick it up?
Oh, I guess it kind of depends on the form.
I mean, in these cuts. It's
Yeah.
an interesting contrast. You have a very fine idea about the foot, and yet if it's just sitting there, it's not a foot until you pick it up. Physically, yeah.
I guess it requires a certain level of participation.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Or just like a scratch piece of paper or something. Just have like something. Perfect. So I keep like all kinds of like bigger scrap paper and stuff, and newspaper and newsprint and whatever around in my studio, and then I have a lot of drywall, random cut-off boards and stuff because there's no texture on it, and so like I hate to like spend all that time and then set it down on a piece of plywood or something, and then defeats the whole purpose, right? So I'll start, when I'm working on a series of pieces, I'll start by throwing them, trimming them, and then I move on, in this case, to this kind of Mishima technique. That's a little bit of an appropriation. It's not really a Mishima. It's just maybe the easiest way to describe it. So I use cold wax Forbes because it's easy to get, and it's a little more expensive than it used to be, but not as expensive as it could be. I don't like some of those other waxes. They take a long time to dry. They're good for other things, but for this, it's not. Forbes is pretty good. And this is like a hard, leather hard. Maybe a little bit past that, but I could still like, I could probably still still add something to it, but like you want to baby it, right? It's like it's firm. It's pretty firm. I found if it's too soft, if I try to do it, like I'll start with these, and then maybe that one by sitting out will be ready. If I try to do it too soon, then the line, when I go to put the line in it, it's a different line quality than what I'm looking for. It needs to be like firm, but not too firm. You know, you gotta catch it just right. So I'm gonna paint. See how far I get. I'll paint this wax on there. I go ahead and coat the whole thing. If I knew for sure, like I was only doing something, it was only going to be in the bottom half or the bottom third, then maybe I just wax that part. But a lot of times, some lines go up and some lines are like a little lower, and so I just wax the whole thing. It's like maybe a little wasteful, but that's what I do.
You're holding it to avoid texture?
Just to avoid touching the wet.
Do you not do like a banding wheel, or?
Yeah, I guess you could. I don't know. I just always do it by hand. It's pretty firm, right? You're not gonna like. You're not gonna. I mean, I guess if I ding it into something, it'll. But I find that just do it by hand. I also don't always do the same thing. Like sometimes I have put them on banding wheels. I don't know. Sorry, no, this part's not super exciting.
You're building anticipation. Building anticipation.
And then I'll do a little bit, for these I'm going to do a little bit just at the top on the inside. Because there's a little bit of a natural lip there. You can like, if it shows up, you see like there's like a little bit of a dimension. It's not like a sharp line, it's kind of an implied line. So I'm going to wax just over that a little bit. And then that will give me a space to bring some of that line on the outside just barely up over to the inside, which I think is a nice, it's a nice moment. I don't know. I didn't always, I don't know, hopefully they're not the same all the time, I hope. Hopefully they get better, you know, you're not doing the same thing over and over and over again. So some, like maybe I didn't realize that was an opportunity to like activate that space at first. Like it was just sort of like, oh, it's the edge of the pot, that's where it stops. And, but I was activate, you know, you activate the bottom of the pot, so why can't you bring that line a little on the inside and activate the inside of the pot? I don't know. When I went to school, I was like dead set that like I wanted to make pots. I wanted to be a potter. This was like this thing that was an identity that I felt drawn to. And I went to Appalachian State University and I went through their art department, and sometimes what I thought I wanted to be was not necessarily what they thought like I should be. And so, but I'm really thankful for that experience. It changed the way I think about objects. It changed the way I think about making. It changed the way I see. I had this drawing instructor who would always tell me, he's like, you're not looking. And I'm like, I am freaking looking, dude. I'm looking so hard right now. But I didn't understand what he meant, and he meant that like I just wasn't using my eyes in the right way. Like I wasn't really looking at what I was looking at. I was seeing an object, but I wasn't really looking at the space. But at like 20 years old, I was just like frustrated and like this charcoal drawing is stupid, and like I don't want to do that. I just want to make pots, you know. And, but it was a really valuable experience. All right, I'll just do this one and then we'll let it be. Any questions so far? Comments?
What is the porcelain use?
This stuff is what we have here. It's the standard 257. I wish I could find West Coast clays on the East Coast, which you can't. But I was using Aardvark's Coleman porcelain for many years. And before that, I was mixing up a body myself. But a while back, like 2017-ish, our supplier that we were getting all of our raw materials from switched up where they were getting their bentonite, and something about it changed. And I was using bentonite in the porcelain body as the binder, and then something like the bentonite was just a little different and it wasn't binding, and after like 2 batches I was like, this is dumb, I'll just use this stuff that's already figured out, and ended up loving the Coleman's porcelain way more than the body that I had been mixing up. And it was more expensive, but with the the bad model of the lower back, and like it seemed like a good option. So I've been using that for the Coleman's for quite a while. But this 257, this seems pretty good too. It's pretty similar. I don't know if other folks use it or not, but it's pretty forgiving for porcelain.
What kind do you fire the porcelain to?
Tin, yeah. All right, so this one, the first one we did is pretty dry now. That's why I like that Ford, because it dries so fast.
You did it down quite much.
No,
You did?
no, I just
Just
use it, yeah. I want it to work, you know. So I just use it full test, full strength. So I use a scalpel to make those small lines, like an actual surgical scalpel. And after trying many things like an X-Acto blade and a razor blade and the really nice wood-handled Dolan, like pointy knife that's awesome, right? It wasn't the right mark. But the scalpel blade is a perfect shape because it's a V shape. And so when you cut into the clay, it leaves this little like baby trough. It like makes this shape. So then when you're dragging the contrasting color, I mean, I'm using black, but whatever color you're using, you're dragging it over the surface, it's like open enough to catch it. Whereas the other blades I was trying, it's just making like a straight line, and it's hard to get it to go in there. So I had a surgeon in one of the classes I was teaching at the Southwest School, and he had some scalpels, and I made sure that they hadn't been used, because I thought that would be weird. And anyway, he let me have one or not, so I know you can order them on Amazon, so if I lose it, I guess I'll get another one. But it's a perfect tool.
What number?
21. Is that a good number? I have no idea the relationship to number. Does it have to do with the blade shape?
Yes.
Okay. 21 is my favorite. All right, so I'm gonna do some ones from this Mesa series because I think they work well in composition, and it makes some nice shapes on the bottom. So I'm just gonna cut in like that, and then I don't know. It's kind of odd to do it this way. And this stuff's not like, I don't really plan this out. I just kind of make it up as I go along.
How deep are you cutting in?
Oh, like, I don't know, like half a millimeter maybe? I don't know.
Just through the wax?
Yeah, through the wax and into the clay a little bit. I wish, I don't have a feel it a little bit in the bisque state. Like it's not like rough, but you can kind of feel where that line is. So it's going into the surface a little bit, you know.
Do you wax the whole pot every time, or piecemeal sometimes?
I've done a few, like this is a good example. Like I didn't wax all the way down the grooves, you know, I just kind of stopped at like the third or fourth one so that I wasn't ever good at coloring inside the line. So like that way I created a little buffer zone down there in case my hand slipped, right? But I didn't, you don't have to wax the whole thing. But with something like this, I just do the whole thing. So I kind of alternate, but I think about the relationship of the shape, right? Like this one came up kind of tall, this one's coming down. I don't want it to match exactly, right? That's static, so it comes down just a little bit past that. But a lot of it is just intuitive. Sometimes you're like, nailed it, and other times you're like, maybe better on the next one. And I try to create, it's kind of hard to tell, but I try to make sure they're not like straight down. Like that there's a little, whether it's concave or convex, there's a little movement in that line, and it's not this like super straight. You know, because there's not really any other like super straight lines on the pot, so. Cool, and then maybe just like one little one here.
So as a surgeon, do you ever slip with your scalpel?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've cut myself, I've stuck it through the side of the thing, like, I've totally botched it, yeah, 100%. I think, I shouldn't say that, let me back up. I don't like failure. I think it's a really valuable tool. It also, like, when you do that, you're like, whoa, maybe I don't need to be doing this right now. Maybe I'm stressed out. Maybe I'm thinking about all the other things I should be doing, and I shouldn't be carving lines into the sides of cups. Maybe I should go walk my dogs, or like do chores, or any number of other life things that we should probably be taking care of. So I find that the material and the process keeps you really honest. Like if you're stressed out and you go to like throw some plates or whatever's on the docket for the day, and you got like your brain space isn't right, like the material will tell you that. Like it doesn't, you can't fool it. It's gonna tell you. And so if you're doing something like maybe I need to clean my studio instead of carving fine lines into the pot if I'm cutting my thumb. Like maybe that's not how I should be spending my time. So I try to pay attention, you know, but like am I always good at that? No. And I'll just keep carving the lines. All right, so now I'm going to move to the bottom. So what I want to do is think about where do these lines meet up on the inside, and then I'm going to bring that shape in and close it out on the bottom. So I don't know, is it helpful if I turn around like this? Because my head's probably in somebody's way. It's a lot harder to do it this way. The other cool thing about the wax is like if you go too far and you didn't want to do that, you can just like push it back over on itself a little bit. Because like it's dry, but it's still wax, so it still moves. So like if you go too far, like past your point, you just hide it. Just push it back.
How are you resolving the corners?
Over the foot?
And where they join?
No, I just like that. It's just kind of coming together as a
Like with
solid.
the point of the scalpel, you're just pointing it in?
Yeah, this one I'll do slower and show. So what I'll do is start kind of at one on the corner, and then I get close to the other one, and then I come back to this one and kind of like roll and just try to nick just that side, you know, just to not go too far. Oh, see. That one's not great. That one's more like a, that's like less mesa, more hill. That's alright. And then on the inside, I'm going to follow that around, so I just, and bring that line and stop it right at the, I really like the detail part of the work. I'm slow at a lot of things, but I'm a slow maker of objects. It's fine. I don't try to be faster. I guess if I was paying my bills by selling pots, I maybe need to speed this up a little bit, but I'm not, so. You know, I may not make as many of these. They may not all be like this. Maybe some are just thrown and trimmed and they're displays and it's fine. But I really do enjoy it, so I don't care that it takes a long time. So I'm going to use a little black underglaze. I want to be mindful of the time, so I want to move into putting the inlay in the first one, and then if we have time, I'll try to sort of quickly, not fast, quickly finish the other ones up, and maybe, and this one is starting to get like it could be wax. It's still a little soft, but it'll be okay. So this is, I've used several different black underglazes over the years. I also have some, I was thinking I may use some black slip, but I'm just going to use the underglaze. I had a slip recipe too. I'll use some black slip sometimes instead of the underglaze. It just kind of depends. The black slip with the Celadon, you get like this really nice charcoal. So with the work that's like these bigger lines, when I do the more kind of traditional Mishima technique, I like it with the slip with these bigger lines, but I find that the contrast is a little stronger with the underglaze and the fine lines. But I like that it's like, it's black, but it's not really black. It's like charcoal. It's a little more interesting, I hope, than black. Not that black's boring, but I think if it was like, if it was that, the mark was that big and it was just like really black, it would be really stark. It would just be a lot of contrast. Maybe I'm getting too nerdy about it, but so then I just paint it in there.
Which underglaze did you say you're using?
This one is a Duncan. It's a CC118. It's a good underglaze. It's really consistent. I like the color that it turns out. And every once in a while, I was using a glaze for a little while. It was a Pete Pinnell recipe, and it was one of his blue Celadon recipes. And it would bleed like just a little bit with the CC, like just enough that it's like it shaded that line just a little bit with the bleed. If you guys know what I'm talking about, right? I had some like blank stares where you're like, what? Why is something bleeding? Not the best sponge, but it'll work. I should have brought. Well, I'll just use this one. It's fine. I can't. It doesn't matter that it's the nice sponge, right? We're moving past that, so we just stain it. It's fine. So I usually work on like one or two at a time, and then I'm just wiping it off. But I'm really conscious about moving to a clean spot on the sponge, or else you just smear it everywhere. So I rinse my sponge a lot, and I try to use a clean side of it. When you don't, it kind of looks like that, so you gotta go back. And I usually save doing the inside until last, and then I can just set it down. I'm done with it, you know.
So you said this was like a twist on Mishima, but I'm gonna admit, I don't know what that means. I don't know what Mishima means.
So, if I understand correctly, and again, I mean, all of these things are kind of appropriated, right? So I try to be really careful with how much authority I say something with. My understanding of it is that you would make some kind of mark, a stamp, carving, some kind of impression, right? And then you would coat that whole surface with a contrasting color. Whatever, white clay, you could use porcelain and dark stoneware slip, you could use mason stain, whatever, just something that's contrasting. And then you would wait for that to firm up, start to dry out, almost like right before bone dry, and then you would scrape off all of it. And so what it does is it removes the color from the non-carved or stamped area, and it leaves it laid into the underneath color. So this is like kind of that, but I'm using wax. So it's a little more contemporary, it's probably not the perfect term either, but so it's a nod to that tradition, that method of creating contrast and line and texture, but I would hesitate to say that I'm any kind of authority on its history, its development. One day I hope to have a better hold on my work-life balance and be able to go back to being able to really dig into historical work and ideas, but it's just like I work at least 40, sometimes 50 hours a week. My wife's a high school art teacher, and if anyone else is in education, thank you. Like, my hat's off to you. It's been an absolute cluster of many years and an already broken system that's now even more broken than it was before. So if you are in that system, thank you, because wow. So when yes. I'm so glad you sat in the front.
So you go over it 2 times?
No, just once. I just laid in once. I think I had missed one on the other side too, because I not focused. Okay, cool. All right. So that's kind of the idea. So think about when I'm making. So I'll start working on the next one, unless we.
How did you glaze that after that? I mean, the wax would have to.
Well, I just misfire it, and it just burns away.
And then you glaze it.
And then I glaze it, yeah. Yeah, it's like it was never there. Yeah, so when we get home, I mean, I have to do my work in the morning. I get up, we both get up really early. I do my work in the morning because I'm trash by the time I get home. Like, I just want to play with my dogs and like have a sit down and like make a meal and relax, right? I don't want to go make pots at 7 o'clock at night. I just don't. I tried for a long time and I realized like I don't want to do that. So I just don't. I make them in the morning. I mean, sometimes you have to. If you have a deadline or like a show or like, sometimes you have to do stuff you don't want to do. But generally speaking, I love making things, and I don't want to create situations for myself in which I don't look forward to going and making those things. So, so I try not to. If somebody gets it figured out, please share it with the rest of us how you do that. I would love to know.
So if you're covering the whole pot with wax when it's still pretty wet, why does it, I don't understand how the wax, does the wax just shrink with it? Or if you put it on the inside and the outside, would that just like, I guess I'm wondering like, shrinkage, wax, what?
I don't know, it just works.
It just works. Okay.
It just works. I mean, here's like, and we can pass this around. This is like too wet, so pass it around. I wouldn't wax it yet. So I'd wait, like, I don't know what, another 45 minutes or something of sitting out. Maybe it would be ready. Hard to say, right? Is the heat on? Is the AC on? Is the...
How do you know it's too much, it's too dry?
If I feel like I couldn't press something into it, like and you could always press it. You can almost always press a nail and make a mark. But like, if I feel like it's almost lost its impressionability, then I feel like I missed it. If I feel like I can just pinch it a little bit and it will flex, then it's not ready. I don't think it's ready. It's too soft. You can do it, but then the line is going to be different. It gives you, it's a different line quality. So you may like that line quality. I don't know.
So that being the case, do you have a limited amount of time to lay down your marks so that they're all uniform?
Yeah. Yeah, I try to not.
Kind of on the clock.
Yeah, once you start it up, you're all in it. At least for this phase. I have found I can get the wax on it and wrap it back up, and I can catch it in the morning. It's fine because the wax, of course, is sealing it off, so it's dramatically slowing down. Like this will not dry now nearly as fast as it would if I hadn't put wax on it. Yeah, you want to make sure it's ventilated. It's like your whole kiln. If I'm doing this, the whole kiln's usually got half of it's got wax. So I definitely, my kiln's vented. I'm trying to. I want to keep doing this for as long as I physically can. So I try to be pretty mindful about health and safety things. But when you scale this up, I think the bisque time matters a lot more with burning all this stuff up. Like the cup is so small that if it's mostly like smallish stuff, it's.
I was thinking more about moisture.
Oh, I
It only
see.
gets all the inside.
That's true. Yeah. So one of the reasons that I like working in like a series of this is because once you get them all done, then I can line them up and I can start turning them. And so then you can create these like compositions, right? And then you look at it from one side and it makes one positive, negative shape and space, and then you turn them and it makes another one, and then you like flip them over and the bottoms become get activated and become part of the composition. And it's just interesting, I don't think, to me, other people may not ever notice or care, and that's fine too, right?
So do you tend to sell in sets then, or do you individually, and then if they take the one that's the key one?
I've sold things in small sets. I've never I did put together an exhibition several years ago down in Rockport, Texas, which if you ever find yourself in the southern coast of Texas, Rockport, Texas is an amazing small town with I cannot overemphasize the level of support for the arts in this small town. It blew my mind wide open. The town's like, I don't know, 15,000 people, right? And at the opening of this exhibition that I put together, there must have been like 400 people there. And I'm nobody, right? I'm just teaching classes in San Antonio, making pots and sculptures. Like, no one knew me there. that's just how the town shows up for art. Like, it was mind-blowing. And I had this big, long, it was like 20 cups. It was kind of part of that Williams Lake series. And I had them on a really thin shelf, and they were lined up, and it was like my favorite piece in the show. And somebody bought like 4 of them or something, right? But I've never saw like a big old line of them. I don't worry about it. You just bunch it together, turn it a different way, and it's a new landscape, you know? Don't worry about it.
You could also present them as shallow cups with deep feet, deep cups with shallow feet.
Yeah. Oh, I see. It's like a...
And the pattern would speak to that.
You like, that's actually...
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm gonna throw like a really shallow cup with a super deep foot, and I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm gonna carve it all the way, and just have this like. That's great. I'm gonna make one of those, and then I'm gonna bring it to a meeting in a few months, and I'm gonna show it to you, and we can decide if it's trash or not.
Well, you have to change the series. And is it, which is right better?
I love it. It becomes totally, it's like building blocks for kids, right? It's like an interact, you just mess around with it till you like it.
Or it could be right in the center and you have to decide which way it's up. Is it upside down?
So what happens if you wax it when it's too wet?
Nothing bad. It's just the line that it makes when you carve into it. With this tool and this kind of like this sort of the quality of this line that I'm trying to get, it's just different. It's just a little, it digs a little deeper into the material. It seems to kind of like push, like this cuts, and I feel like when it's too wet, it kind of like pushes it. That, I'm not explaining that very well, but and I want more of I want a cut, right? I'm trying to like, I want that thing, there's some tension on it right now, right? It's thrown, I've compressed it, I've trimmed it, I ribbed it, it's compressed, I've got the wax on it, there's like some surface tension. It's like when you cut into like you cut a skinny piece of wood out of like a bigger board, right? Like that tension cuts loose. So there's like tension in this, and I want that tension to kind of split a little bit in the surface of the piece as I cut into it, because it opens it up enough for me to drop this color in, but it keeps the line thin enough that it reads as this like really, you know, super fine. I couldn't paint a line, like my hand would be all over the place. So it's like this is the only way I could figure out to get a line that thin that shows up. So, but I could, you know, maybe I could keep messing around with it. But that's why. So that's kind of the gist.
What do you bisque fire to? What do you bisque fire to?
Most of my work I fire to 06. Here at the Craft Center, we're bisquing to 04. We have, that's alright, I'll do it after. I'll put the lines on the inside afterwards. We're doing 04 here at the Craft Center just because it helps with some glaze runs and stuff, like especially with a lot of the intro classes and people dunking and putting, because the body's a little tighter, and so it doesn't soak up quite as much glaze as it would. So when you have these intro classes and folks have never, you know, maybe they had some classes and they were painting on some, you know, commercial brushable glazes or something, but they're not used to the pouring in and the pouring out, and it just like kind of helps. Like they don't get quite as much per dip. I mean, there's still stuff runs all over the place sometimes, but it certainly helps. But I like 06. I mix my glazes up to, this is like one of those things I'm really anal about. I mix all my glazes to like 1.45 or 1.5 specific gravity. And the celadons I tend to mix to like 1.4 or 1.45 because I find they're better just a hair thinner.
They break over edges.
Yeah, but I really like the science of clay too. I got really into it in school. I just like it. I like building kilns. I like fixing stuff. I like moving bricks. I like splitting wood. I like labor. It seems like I like labor. So I got really jumped out on that stuff in school, and have continued to enjoy learning about that.
You ever done this with graffito?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use. I was thinking about maybe trying to fit that in, but it's a tight. An hour and a half is kind of tight.
How's it different?
Well, this graffito, it's like I had to paint it all on, let it dry enough to be able to scratch back through it. Again, it's like a drying thing with the type of line. If you paint all the, you paint your color, your block color on, and then try to carve back through it while it's still wet, it's gonna drag.
Have you ever carved it through the wax?
It's graffito. Oh, like put a color on.
No, just like you're doing now with that tool.
Like a sgraffito tool
Yes.
to make the mark. I understand. Yes, I see what you're saying. Not the technique sgraffito.
Right.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I have. Sorry, I didn't mean. I think I confused us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What tool do you use for the broad lines?
For the on that sgraffito tool, that triangle-y one, I like that one. I like not the smallest one, but the medium one. I couldn't tell you what I'm sure it has a number. I didn't even know this had a number until somebody asked me. But I've used the circle one too for certain things. I got real into the circle one for a little while. Was doing some stuff with that one, but. It's like as much as I think in my brain I want to be a full-time artist. I know that it can. I don't think it has to, but it can make you feel like you can't take. Like I can take a lot of risks. Like I can do stuff, and if it fails, it doesn't matter, right? As long as at the end of the year my books balance, like, and the thing feeds itself. And I make enough to buy some new equipment, or like maybe my wife and I can go on a little weekend trip or something, right? Like, it's fine. So I can take a lot of chances that I know I wouldn't be able to take if I was relying solely on selling work, right? So as much as I like the idea of it, I don't know if I do. I don't know. I've only ever worked as a full-time artist for about 6 months. I did a residency, and I still had to wash. I washed dishes at this mountain at this lodge that this residency program had, and so every Friday and Saturday night I washed dishes, and I got $40 cash and a free meal. So that's how well it was going when I was just selling pots. So like I knew every week I had 2 hot meals and $80. Like the truck had gas. Like it was okay. I learned a lot. It was a fantastic experience, and I think it made me a better human. I hope.
Where was that?
In Plumtree, North Carolina, which is just north of Spruce Pine off of 19E. Right past where the Tow River crosses 19E, in a little town called Plumtree. There's a post office, and at one point in time there was this lodge on the side of the road, and the family that owned this lodge decided that they had this other property that was just off of the main road on Big Plumtree Creek Road. No surprise how it got its name. And you kind of wound back into this holler, and they had I don't know, there was probably 150, 200 acres back in there. And they had turned it into this, there was disc golf. I mean, it was very, if you spend any time in Western North Carolina, this was like Western North Carolina, like textbook, right? There was a brewery, there was disc golf. They were trying to get this like artist, I don't know, experience thing happening. There was camping. I mean, it was like it's exactly what goes on in Western North Carolina. It was amazing. And so they invited, I met the owners, they invited a few of us to participate in this kind of residency program. It was amazing, but like it wasn't, it's not like I was at Archie Gray, okay? Like I was at a dead-end road in a holler in southern Avery County. Like it was, but it was great. And it was me, and there was a buddy named Dave Gordon, who I think is still making work. He's a blacksmith. And so there was a blacksmith, and I was the ceramic artist, and we peddled our wares in the gift shop at the lodge. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. I wasn't married. I didn't have any animals. I had a 99 Chevy S10 that was paid off, and everything that I owned fit in the back of it, including the wheel and the kiln. So I didn't have a lot of overhead. I would have a very difficult time doing that same thing now. Cool. It's about 8:30. I'm going to keep carving. I'll try to get all 4 of these kind of rocks glasses done. But feel free. We can chat and talk more, and I can ramble about things, or you can hold some pots if you want to. That's what I got. I'm happy to hang out. Thanks so much.